بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الذكر جلاء للقلوب تسمع به بعد الوقرة وتبصر به بعد العشوة، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of here and the hereafter. We praise Him for making remembrance the light for the hearts to hear and to help us see when the heart has been blinded and deferred. We convey our greeting and salutation to the Holy Prophet of Islam and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عباد الله أوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان من قبلهم يحبون من هاجر إليهم ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا ويؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. And those who establish themselves in the homeland and in faith before others arrive, have love for those who immigrated to them. They do not have any ambition for what is given to the migrant and give preference to them over themselves even when they are in poverty. They are the one who saved from own greed and successful ones. Surah Al-Hashr, verse number 9. As usual, we start with a few reminders. First, it has become now a cliche. Please turn off your cell phone and refrain from conversation. May I remind everyone that Khutbatul Jum'ah is part of the prayer. If you miss listening to the Khutbatul Jum'ah, the 2 rak'ah is a must now, must be supplemented with Salat al-Dhuhr. Salat al-Dhuhr becomes wajib if you miss listening and being attentive to the Khutbah al-Jum'ah. You can't be physically present and yet absent somewhere else. So please turn off your cell phone and refrain from conversation during the khutbahs. You can do that during the prayer if you wish. 2 days ago, we had the anniversary of death, or some people claim the martyrdom of al-Banin, the mother of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and 3 of his brothers, the wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. I would like to take this opportunity and offer my condolence for the occasion to everyone. During the past week, we also have lost few friends. We lost Haj Rafiq Baydoun, Marhum Haj Baydoun, and also Haj Ali Khazali that used to recite Adhan, prayer, and so on here. And on Wednesday, we commemorate him. So please join me in reciting Surah Al-Fatiha قبلها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Just over 3 weeks have passed since an event which I'm sure is going to become part of US history. the storming of the Capitol by Trump supporters, the mobs that went in and whatever they did. Unfortunately, during the past weeks, political pundits have focused purely on the fact, looking at it from a lens of what it means when it comes to the US democracy and how fragile it is. There is another point here which most people miss it. And the presence of these people showed how deep-rooted division and fracture exist within the social structure in the United States. And this is something that is going to cause huge amount of problem in the future. We are in for a more gloomy days when it comes to community relationship. I'll just give you one statistics that this was, by the way, by Brookings Institute, which is a right-wing organization, assessing what happened in 2016 election. Now it was worse. They said, the character of this mob, these type of people, intolerance of Islam and Muslim is one hallmark of Trump supporters, setting themselves apart from even the rest of the Republicans. Trump performed much better than the other GOP candidates among Republicans who had deep-rooted hate towards Islam and the Muslim within the community. Now, the genie is out of the box. How can you try to tame it? It's another issue. The Thursday after, Wednesday they attacked, Thursday after, I had, with a number of other people, a Zoom conversation with the governor. And I tried to bring to her attention, leave the assessment, the political assessment aside. Let's focus on the social consequences for us, the minorities. What hope there is that the new administration is going to change some of these stuff. She wasn't forthcoming, but at the same time, she accepted that, yes, there is a challenge that we really need to address. When you add to this 6th of January is what we call the day in which, from a Christian perspective, the baptism of Jesus took place, or it's called sometimes Epiphany. It has religious consequences and connotations to it as well. So where is our society going to go, and how we are going to act is critical issue. What should we do in the light of the information and the crisis that we have? How can we help bridge over the rift and heal the crisis that we have? Number one step that we really need to address is to start with the mindset. How do we see ourselves, our role within this community? Those of you who remember, just over a year and a half, I think, there was a story that I narrated it. In province of Alberta, Canada, in the middle of 1980, a mosque was opened, inaugurated. They invited the provincial governor to come as a keynote speaker and present his case. And after him, they asked what we call an intellectual, a Muslim scholar who taught Islamic studies in university, to come and give his understanding. The provincial governor focused on the fact that the Muslim community is successful financially, etc., business-wise within the province. The professor disagreed. He said, as Muslims, we have a mission in this country. He was talking about Canada, and the same applies in this country. We didn't come over here to become successful purely in materialistic world and become rich and even Rockefellers. As Muslims, we have a mission. That mission is what? When the society is broken, an alternative narrative is provided by the Muslim community to the rest. And when it comes to this, we have failed. We have failed to deliver an alternative narrative for the community that becomes hopeful that there are a group of people, despite everything that is happening, a group of people are there that are working hard. Even the scholars these days talk about capitalism is broken. Inequalities has reached biblical level. Social mobility is falling. COVID-19 pandemic showed a number of discrepancies within our society. And essential workers have no protection. 50 million American citizens are on what we call it food stamp. The 1%, and these are statistics, 1% of the community holds 40% of the wealth. And the 90% of the lower communities hold 75% of the debt. And the statistics can go on and on. Under the circumstance, what is our responsibility here as Muslims? Just go under the radar, and I see no evil, hear no evil, and just continue with the number of green bills? Or no, we really have social responsibilities here. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq salawatullah salamu alayhi, when the society was less complex, purely on whether they followed Ahlul Bayt or they didn't follow Ahlul Bayt, whether they agreed with the Imam or they didn't agree with the Imam. We went for Khilafah. Imam commands the followers of Ahlul Bayt not to withdraw from society and live on the margin, but be active in all segments of the society. Udu mardahum. Those who disagree with you, go and visit. They're sick. Wahdharu janaizahum. When somebody dies from them, be present. Show sympathy and empathy. Wasallu fi masajidihim. Go to their mosques. Participate. Why? حتى تكون التمييز وتكون المباينة منكم ومنهم. So people see what kind of people are we and what are the values that we stand for. And unfortunately, I totally agree with the professor, we have failed. Let's learn something from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before his proclamation, what did he used to do? He used to go to the cave, contemplating and reflecting on the social situation that prevails within the society. He cared even for the idol worshippers, that ultimately when he proclaimed to prophethood, they stood up against him and they fought with him. And yet, he cared, he reflected, he was affected by their situation, etc., etc. What should we do? We really have responsibility. Even if you can't be a benevolent, look at the fact. We are very much part of this community, where we have chosen our homes to be. This is where we raise our children. This is where we work. This is where we study. This is where we live. And we might end up, if we don't end up going to Najaf, Lebanon, or somewhere else, being buried here. We are part of this melting pot. We cannot be indifferent to the reality that is around us. I'm not saying don't work hard for your well-being and material life, far from it. اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا. This is a hadith. واعمل balance. واعمل لآخرتك كأنك تموت غدا. We have social responsibilities. If during Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq was the presence in the mosque and attending the janaiz and presenting yourself was something that identified you. Now we have to develop a narrative, a complex narrative to be able to deal with the crisis, economic, social, and everything else that we have within our society. But brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to happen if we are divided within ourselves. If kullun yajurru an-nar ila qursih, if all pulls in different direction. We cannot become the ambassadors for peace, trying to heal the community if we are dysfunctional and fractured. The verse, the passage that I started with, Surah Al-Hashr, identifies, broadly speaking, few steps that we really need to take. Number one, unity in Islamic social order stands or rests on, what does it mean? It means completing one another. We don't see ourselves independent from somebody else. Part and parcel. Yesterday, I read an article from a professor of sociology in Nottingham University in England, and she was saying that COVID-19 proved to the rich that nobody can be saved until every poor is vaccinated. There is only one community. Justice for all is when everyone and everywhere. This is why when we talk about the living Imam when he comes back, يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْض قِسْطًا وَعَدْلًا. There is no difference. There is no discrimination. Everyone is the same. Why? From a rational point of view, injustice everyone, somewhere is injustice everywhere because it's not complete. Poverty somewhere is poverty everywhere because we are not complete. So Islam, unity means start creating that image of feeling complementary to each other. And once you do that, the criteria for work is فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. What does that mean? Work hard for doing good deed, community work, community good for the sake of everybody else. Even if it's not today, the benefit comes back tomorrow. When you work hard for a stabilization of a community, if you don't benefit from it, your children and grandchildren will benefit from it. Number two, our attitude towards others, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. Deep in the heart, unworthy thoughts are removed from other people. And finally, to consider others as part of yourself. When Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah salamu alayhi gives the command to Malik al-Ashtar to go to Egypt, what does he tell him? He tells him that your society, إِمَّا أَخٌ لَكَ فِي الدِّينِ أَوْ نَظِيرٌ لَكَ فِي الْخَلْقِ. Either you have ideological common ground, or at least basically from a human perspective. And until we organize all these factors in ourselves, as in Arabic expression says, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِي. You cannot go out, hold the flag that I'm going to be the champion for peace, bringing healing and so on, if our houses are disorganized and fractured. Our youth go in one direction, our elders go another direction, our women go in another direction, the schools are totally different, and we wonder why people are coming to the center. Our grandchildren, yesterday I had a telephone call from a couple, 25 years old, member of this community, 25 years old, Lebanese descent, second or third generation. Mulana, we want to learn about Islam. We suddenly realize, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. They suddenly realize that we have been far away from Islam. Why? Second generation, our community, Shias. The same thing happens in Iraqis, the same thing happens in Iranians and Afghanis and everybody else. An Afghani young man studying at Ann Arbor came to me and he said, Maulana, I want to write a paper about the life of Fatima al-Zahra, and I have nothing to say. Isn't this embarrassing? When the house is fractured, broken, and then we want to stand up in front of everybody else and say, we can provide you with an alternative narratives. Wishful thinking. Let's hope and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that guiding line and light that we really need to shine our path, enlighten our heart, and create the inner vision to understand that we really have a mission and we really need to stand up to it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونشكره ونستعينه ونتوب إليه من سيئات أعمالنا ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. أخواتي وإخواني الأعزاء مولانا الشيخ محمود، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عباد الله، أوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله. 13 من جمادي الآخر ذكرى وفاة السيدة الجليلة أم البنين. فمن هي أم البنين؟ هي فاطمة بنت حزام وحزام بن خالد بن ربيعة بن عامر بن صعصع العامري. ولدت أم البنين من بيت عريق في العروبة والشجاعة، وليس في العرب أشجع من آبائها. مع الأسف الشديد لم يذكر التاريخ تاريخ ولادتها بالدقة، وقيل بأن ولادتها تقع ما بين 5 هجري إلى 9 هجري، وسموها فاطمة. وهي المرأة النبيلة الصالحة ذات الفضل والعفة والورع والديانة، تنتمي لأشرف القبائل العربية شرفاً وأجمعهم للمآثر الكريمة. أهلها من سادات العرب وأشرافها وزعمائها، وهم أبطال مشهورون، وهم الذين عناهم عقيل بن أبي طالب، وكان عالماً بأنساب العرب وأخبارهم، فحق لأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب أن يرغب في الوصلة الصهرية بهم، لأن البنت التي ولدها مثل هؤلاء الأبطال الشجعان لا تلد إلا شجاعاً بطلاً. قال الإمام علي عليه الصلاة والسلام مخاطباً أخاه عقيل: أبغني امرأة قد ولدتها الفحول من العرب فتلد لي غلاما أسدا. فقال له عقيل: أين أنت من فاطمة بنت حزام بن خالد الكلابية؟ فإنه ليس في العرب أشجع من آبائها ولا أفرس. تزوج أمير المؤمنين أم البنين بعد وفاة الصديقة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وولدت له 4 بنين: العباس، عبد الله، عثمان، وجعفر. وقد استشهدوا جميعاً مع الإمام الحسين في واقعة كربلاء يوم عاشوراء، ولا بقية لهم إلا من العباس سلام الله عليه. كانت أم البنين من النساء الفاضلات العارفات بحق أهل البيت، ويقال أنها لما دخلت على أمير المؤمنين وكان الحسنان مريضين أخذت تلاطف القول معهما وتلقي إليهما من طيب الكلام ما يأخذ بمجامع القلوب. ما جاء في سمو شخصيتها أنها كانت ترعي أولاد الزهراء سلام الله عليها أكثر مما ترعي أولادها وتؤثرهم على أولادها تعويضاً لما أصابهم من حزن وفقدان حنان لشهادة أمهم الزهراء البتول. وقالت يوماً لأمير المؤمنين: يا أبا الحسن، نادني بكنيتي أم البنين ولا تذكر اسمي. فقال لها: لماذا؟ قالت: أخشى أن يسمع الحسنان فينكسر خاطرهما ويتصدع قلبهما لسماع ذكر اسم أمهما فاطمة. فأي امرأة جليلة مؤمنة صابرة صالحة وقور مثل هذه المرأة؟ يقول أحد الدارسين لشخصية أم البنين عليها السلام إن أم البنين كانت أقوى جرأة وشجاعة وأصلب المؤمنات على تحمل الصعاب وتطلب المجد والكرامة ولا ينال ذلك إلا بالمصائب. لقد كانت أم البنين القدوة الحسنى والمثل الأعلى، وكانت عنوانا للثبات والإخلاص. قد كان لسعة اطلاعها في الأمور وإخلاصها الكريم وماضيها المجيد أثر حاسم في تعليق الناس بها وثقتهم ومحبتهم التي لا حد لها بشخصها، فاستطاعت بحكمتها وصبرها وبعد نظرها التغلب على كل المصائب. وهذا إن دل على شيء فإنما يدل على معدنها الأصيل في ضمن إطار الأخلاق العربية والتربية الإسلامية الأصيلة، وتقاليدها في التعامل مع الجمهور في احترامها لهم. لأن المرأة عظيمة المنزلة عند أمير المؤمنين في العلم والحلم والمعارف والصلاح، عظيمة المنزلة عند الناس، مما لا شك فيه أن سيرة أم البنين عليها السلام المطهرة هي إعادة سيرة امرأة جعله الله بلسان زوجها الإمام علي عاشت مع الله ولله وفي سبيل الله، انطلقت بروحها بعيداً عن ذاتها وعاشت مع الإمامة في فكرها وإحساسها وحركتها، فأصبحت دستوراً يتحرك في الحياة كأنها حاضر مستمر يزورنا ليدخل علينا دفئاً ونعيماً نتحرك فيه على خطى ثابتة للوصول إلى الهدف المنشود في معرفة الله تعالى إن شاء الله. نسأل الله أن يجعلنا وإياكم من التابعين بسيرة أهل البيت في حياتنا إن شاء الله، إنه مجيب الدعاء. اللهم صل على محمد سيدنا محمد كأفضل ما صليت على أحد من أنبيائك ورسلك، وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين، وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وصل على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة،